Okay, we are live streaming. We are recording. The meeting is yours.
Call to order the regular meeting of the Stonington Board of Police Commissioners for Thursday, December 10th, 2020. And first business, can I have the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? Roger? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, give us our screen back, Roger. Okay, Roger, can you read the procedure for calling in, please?
Absolutely. With our WebEx software, there are a few things we must know about if you're a call-in user and you'd like to participate in the public comments. That if you would like to make a comment, you can raise your hand and alert me by pressing *3 on your phone. When it's your turn to speak, I will send you the request to unmute yourself. When you do that, you'll hear a prompt that says you can now unmute yourself by pressing *6. Then you will hear the meeting system tell you that you're unmuted, and at that time you can speak. So those are the simple directions, and we can go from there.
Okay. First order of business is remarks for the public. If you have something that's on the agenda that's coming up, please wait until that item comes up during the progress of the agenda. Is there anyone here that has just any comments for anything that is not on the agenda for tonight's meeting?
And again, you can alert me by pressing *3 on your phone, and I will then call on you to speak.
Any comments, Roger?
I see no one who has raised their hand as of yet.
Okay, we'll give it another minute or two.
And we're showing only 3 separate call-in users at this moment.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. The first item of new business is the Veterans Memorial at the Police Department. Chief, could you please take it from here and fill us all in on that progress on that?
Good afternoon, everybody. Happy holidays. Hope everybody's well. The veterans, VFW and Pawcatuck came over along with the first select woman and some of the town hall staff, taking a look at trying to find a home for a new veterans memorial in town. They've reached out to numerous locations, whether it be the school department, and tried to look at various spots around the community in which to place this new memorial. So we walked around the PD a little bit and sort of came up with a spot that is right on the entrance way as you come in the first parking lot on the left. So it's sort of between the walkway and the parking lot, and there was enough room there. There's no electrical underneath, etc. So it's really in the beginning stages. And I think down the line, the VFW as well as Danielle Cheeseborough will probably have a presentation for the police commission, but I wanted everybody aware of it, that we're taking a look at it. Tony Lombardo, who was a reserve officer here for years, is heading the for the veterans on the memorial part of it and where it should go and how they're going to fund it, etc. So we did a walkthrough. You can see the posts out on the front. So they do have it sort of marked out just as sort of a an idea of where it potentially could go. So if you're driving by the PD, you can take a look at it. It's going to be about probably about 4 feet high in an octagon type shape with the names on it. And you also have the ability nowadays to have it jump off of your smartphone, and you can listen to different stories, et cetera. It's actually a pretty exciting project. It's being done through Buzzy Memorial. He's a real nice guy, and he's working with a lot of organizations putting these type of things up. So it's at the beginning stages, but just wanted the commission aware of it, that they're taking a look, and obviously you're going to have to chime in to give the necessary permissions if you see fit. So.
Great, Chief. Thank you. Any of the commissioners have any questions for the chief on the memorial?
No, just a comment, Mr. Chairman, quickly. There's a outside memorial in Indianapolis. It's dedicated to Medal of Honor winners. And if you push the button by the recipient's name, it'll basically recite or recap the citation that was given for that designee. And the last time we visited, my wife and I, she recognized the name of a teacher that she had at Stonington High School back a couple of decades anyway. And he was a Navy veteran who brought a ship back, and as a result, there's a more lengthier story that goes along with it. But he subsequently taught at Stonington High School in the science department.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Tabor. Any other comments? The next under new business is the revised mental health policy that we received from Post. Chief, you want to take us through that? And I think that Commissioner Bates may have some comments that you've worked with her and made some comments on that when you get finished describing the policy. Chief.
It's sort of two-pronged here. We can talk about it a little bit later on in the budget end of things. But the Police Academy did come out with the sort of the guidelines for the mental health evaluation that's required under Public Act 20-1. So it just got sent to us recently. So I would suggest that we table it this month and put it back onto the agenda next month. That way everybody has a chance to look at it. They've already come out with one revision on it, and there may be more before it actually ends. So I don't want to keep going down this road of creating or approving a policy that we may end up changing next month. So just table it for 1 month and see if anything further comes out. And then in the budget end of it, we can talk about sort of the how we're going to pay for the evaluations, what the law has to say. But it's more of an FYI for this month. And then I think we revisit. There should be more stuff coming anyways.
Great. We have a motion to table this to next month.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it, Commissioner Tabor.
All in favor by signal by raising your hand. Motion carries. Okay, thank you. The next on the agenda is the Stuff a Cruiser, which is going to be this Saturday. We have a little change in what we normally would be doing, Chief, right, due to COVID. So going to be from 10 to 3. You want to just make a couple of comments on that, Chief?
Well, it's a very popular event in the community. We work with our Human Services Department and provide a lot of toys to kids that otherwise probably wouldn't be getting them. So we're working with them. We're going to be using our community room this year. So we pretty much shut it down for a couple days till we can get this all distributed out to the community. So again, we're having Christy Murray, Teresa Hirsch, and most of the PD ends up participating. At the same time, also, we have a sort of a roaming parade, if you want to call it, with the fire departments, us going around to the different neighborhoods with Santa, trying to, reach out to the community. We usually do across the street at the same time at the high school, a holiday party with Human Services. But obviously, we can't do it this year with COVID. So we're trying to improvise, if you want to call it that. So Saturday, hopefully the weather is going to cooperate. It looks like a 90% chance of rain, but we're hoping that it will clear off for our events here.
So if people want to bring something, Chief, we want to have them bring in unwrapped gifts, one for a boy, one for a girl, and they can drive through and drop them off in the parking lot without getting out of their vehicles, right?
Yeah. Yep, correct.
Okay. Any other comments from the commissioners? All right, we'll move on to new business. And we have our radio consultant, Richard. Baraka here on camera. So we'd like to talk about, I'm sure that everybody got a copy of his report that he sent out. Maybe not too much time to go over it, but Richard, can you go over that? And the floor is yours.
He's muted.
You're muted, Richard.
How about now?
You're good.
There you go. Thank you. Thanks for having me, everyone. It's been a while since I've seen you all. I hope you're all doing well. I'd like to share my screen if I could.
Yeah, Richard, you're good to go. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. You got it?
Not yet.
Rich, can I stop you for just 1 second? Because we have a new member of the Board of Police Commissioners,
Okay.
Lisa Tepper Bates, and she hasn't met you, and you haven't met her, unless I know that something else is going on that I don't know about, whether you met somewhere along the line down the road. But just for Lisa's perspective, that Richard has been on board here for a number of years. With us, not only our camera systems around town, but also for assisting us to get on the state radio system. So he's been sort of attached to our hip for a number of years here, doing a variety of different projects. And on occasion, he does do a little update to the Board of Police Commissioners on what he's doing, how things are going, and sort of a quick glance into the future on what we need to look at, and sort of his progress as well on some of the larger projects, money-wise, et cetera, that we've had to do in town. So with that, I just wanted to do the introduction between Richard and Lisa. So back to you, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Richard. I haven't met you previously, so nice to meet you here.
Very nice to meet you as well. Okay, so there's two main agenda items that I'd like to cover if I could. First of all is the video camera update. Currently, Roger, do you have the screen there?
No, I'm not seeing your screen, Richard.
How about now?
There we go.
There you go. Okay, so the first thing is headquarters. There are a new camera installation for all of the internal cameras in the police department, including all the jail cells. That included 30 interior cameras, 2 exterior cameras, and we're going to leverage 3 of the existing outdoor cameras. This is mainly a update from analog technology to HD technology. Some of the important highlights are all the cameras that interact with any subjects include audio recording. So whether they come into the front lobby or they're the public interview, the Sally ports, all of those interactions are recorded both on video and audio. Another important criteria is the jail cells. All the jail cells will have the recordings maintained for a minimum of 2 years, and not only will it be maintained on the server, which is located in the building, but it's also going to be maintained for a period of time for about 6 to 8 months on the camera itself. So that gives us a little bit of some protections there.
Mm-hmm.
All of the prisoner cell cameras use what's called dynamic zooming, which allows us to go from a straight image until we can zoom into any portion of that screen up to 25 times, which is very important in the jail cells, because you can actually keep an eye literally on pretty much any aspect of the cell that you want it. The exterior cameras include starlight cameras, which is a new technology that allows a camera to operate in total darkness, and it appears as though it's at dusk, which is very helpful because no longer do you have to worry about black and white cameras distinguishing between a gray and a white car or a black or green or blue car. Now those images will be in color, even though it is at night. That is pretty cool technology, and it works very well. The video management server was purchased when we first started this project, which was well over 2 years ago. In an effort to make sure that the equipment was up to date, I sent the server back to the manufacturer to have all the software and licensing updated. In doing that, they also offered to update all of the video graphics on the server. Long story short, I am waiting for that server to come back. And because of COVID, they have very limited resources at the factory. Most of the folks are working from home, and the engineers are literally only going into the office 1 day a week. So it's been a little bit of a struggle. As of yesterday, the latest ETA I have for the arrival of the server is January 1st. The workstations, which are basically the computers that you're able to access the video from, those are all connected directly to the network. And the primary workstation is going to be located in dispatch, and that workstation will provide all the video for the 2 console positions in the dispatch and also the sergeant's area just outside of that. The software is the unique part of all this because it's very, very simple to use. It's calendar based. So when you're looking to find some retention video, you'd literally pull up the camera and then a calendar would come up and you just drill right down into it. It's extremely simple. And more importantly, in these days, it's very economical. You buy the camera license just once. And there's no operating cost thereafter, which is very important. Most of the high-end companies don't do that. They tend to license you every year, and every feature is an additional license fee. The way this network works is it doesn't do that. You pay one time, and it's a perpetual license. If a camera fails, the license carries on with the server, meaning you don't have to buy a new license for a new camera. The video network is separate from all other networks, and that's pretty typical of cybercrime public safety audit procedures. And it's identical SOP that the state of Connecticut uses for the land mobile systems.
Richard, I have a question while you're there.
Yes, sir.
Covers the DWI area also,
Yes.
this system.
Yes.
We have to keep those videos for 2 years. Is the system capable to store those videos for 2 years? By court decree, we need them for 2 years. What's happening there?
So anytime the Sally port, the booking area, the public interview, all the jail cells, pretty much any area that has audio or interaction with a subject is recorded and maintained for 24 months. I thought that was important in the Sally port particularly, because that's where the story usually begins inside of the building. So from there, whether it be a DUI or any other sort of offense, you'll definitely maintain that coverage. And like I said, it's so easy to maintain it as far as the calendar is concerned that you no longer have to have a special hard drive just for those kinds of services.
Great. And when will this whole system be up and running, be completed 100%, Richard?
So January 1st, I expect to have the server in-house, meaning back to me. That's the latest date. That's the last thing I'm waiting for. Everything else I have installed. It's like I said, it's been a bit of a struggle to get that updated. In the long run, I'm glad I did that because we would have been 2 or 3 revisions behind, and we would have had to pay for that update because it was never installed. It's about a $6,000 difference that we would have had to pay. So I'm happy with doing that. I just want to kind of get it done, to be quite honest with you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a struggle. We had some problems with the wiring, our access to the wiring in the jail cells. So I had to come up with a different method of getting those connected. The old wiring only supported analog cameras. So we had these other devices that allow us to use IP cameras, meaning digital cameras. At the end of the day, it all worked out, which is what we're looking for.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay, so on the land mobile side, on the two-way radio update, one of the most important things I do behind the scenes is I try to maintain your intellectual property. And those are your FCC licenses. They don't give them away. You can't just ask for them and get new ones. Once they're issued, they're very difficult to get reissued. So it's very important that they be maintained. So as you see here, the list of them, I won't go through each one of them, but here's the list of all the licenses that are licensed to the town, which includes the police, fire, and public works. And you'll see that as of right now, they're all very well established expiration dates. The nearest one is in a few years. We did modify a few of them. WNLB 591 did need to be modified as a result of going to the land mobile system for the state from a primary service to a backup service. Next item is the state police hotline migration. That's a very, very important channel for all police departments. It's the all call. The state of Connecticut uses that to contact every PSAP, public safety answering point in the state, in the case of any BOLOs or anything like that. Currently, that operates on a low band channel, and the state has been working on migrating that to the trunk radio system. And as part of the interoperability executive committee, we came up with the idea of making that a trunked channel. And it's been beta testing right now in Region 2, which is the other side of the state, Fairfield County. And that's being done right now for them. Region 4, which is us, we expect that migration to happen with probably within the next 6 to 8 months. The good thing is all of your mutual aid partners are already set up for that because you're on the state network. So that's going to work out very well for you. You'll also get text messages regarding those BOLOs, and those will all be part of the new next generation trunking application. The Rhode Island interfacing with Rhode Island EMI, the folks up at the state have been working very hard to try to work that out with them. And to be quite honest with you, it's stalled. The pandemic has put a stop to that on the Rhode Island side. They have very, very limited resources these days to pursue that. So that's going to be on the back burner until such time as Rhode Island can allocate some resources to it. The next item is the proposed state ASR site. An ASR site is nothing more than an auxiliary radio site that helps fill in coverage gaps. One of the noticeable gaps that you have is at the Route 2 and 49 exchange. Not so much for mobiles, but for portables for sure. There's been various locations that we've walked and visited. None of them have really captured any excitement either from myself or from the state, primarily because the engineering just doesn't support it. Again, we need to come up with another solution for that. At some point, I think that's important that we do meet again with the state and maybe think about going back to Winnichog Hill and North Stonington, have them redirect some of those antennas, because I know that would be beneficial to you. So each one of your radios today has a template, and inside the template is all the radio channels. And you try to keep it current, but you don't want to keep it. You don't want to always have to program the radios. Currently, you're on what's called version 8.28, which is about a year old, a little more than a year old. 8.3 came out, and the decision was made not to load it into the software, into your radios, because it really wasn't an established firmware yet. And that proved to be a pretty good decision based on the fact that 8.3 has a little bit of problems with near field communications, meaning the radios would tend to roam when they're very close to the site. So E.F. Johnson has come out with firmware version 8.32, which specifically addresses those concerns. Once that's delivered to the public, right, beta, I actually have it on this radio and it works very well. But once it comes out, we are definitely going to schedule programming of all of your mobiles and your portable radios. That's an important thing because it does take some coordination. Typically, Lieutenant Schneider helps me to coordinate that. Without that coordination, it would almost be impossible to do it properly. Along the same lines is the talk groups. Since the last time we programmed your radios, there's been some other departments that have come on board, Groton City and Ledyard particularly. And also we want to program the new statewide hotline channel that is in your radios, but it's currently labeled Eastern Connecticut Law Enforcement. So those will also be added.
Richard, Norwich is coming online also. I mean, they're going to be included in that besides Ledyard in the city?
Yes,
Right.
Norwich is online, and that will be included. There's a few other channels that we're trying to work through now, besides Norwich as well. What we're trying to get at here is make mutual aid activity a much simpler process. Right now, you use what's called the Eastern Connecticut Law Enforcement Channel, and that works. But during an incident, it would definitely get too busy to have too many municipalities on that one channel. So you sort of have to triage that. And those are usually, and the idea of that is when you're operating the radio, you never want to have to be more than a couple clicks away from the channel. The officer has much more important things to do than worry about than the radio.
So when do you think that's all going to happen, Richard?
Well, the code plug for 8.32, like I said, is in beta, and it's supposed to be released within the next 6 weeks.
Okay.
So we're hoping to get that all done. I've been working with the state as far as your new code plug. They're pretty firm about the code plug. We don't have a lot of flexibility on that. And the reason being is they have to manage over 15,000 radios throughout the state. So I can appreciate the fact that they do want things to be more cookie cutter than custom. So we have to understand that, and that is part of being on the network. So currently you have in the police cruisers, the mobile radios are model VM9000, which are a dual band radio. And the reason those were selected is because it allows you to use your legacy VHF radio system as well as the new system. Kenwood E.F. Johnson has end of life that radio, which that's a polite way of saying they don't make it anymore. The new models that have come out is called the VM7000 deck radio. It's a nice radio. To be quite honest with you, I'm not admired by it too much because it takes too much room. It's a much bigger radio. We need to allocate more space in the car for the radio. I want to talk to you in depth about whether or not you believe that the cars still need a dual band radio. That's an offline discussion. Your radios are in very good condition. There's no reason to think we have to replace them anytime soon. But we do want to be ahead of the curve with our thinking. We definitely want to make sure we have a plan.
Is there much of a cost factor difference in the newer radios compared to the ones we have now?
It's about the same price. If anything, it might be a few $100s less. But it is a much bigger radio. The radio head itself fits in the console, but under the seat there's two large decks that have to be installed there. Unlike the current radios you have that are fit right into the Havas console.
All right, thanks.
So your local government channel, which you have relied on for years, and it works very well for you and your mutual aid partners, that is a VHF channel. And it took some work to get that analog channel into the digital environment. One of my thoughts and one of my I don't want to say ideas because it's not really much of an idea. It's more of an engineering process. Is to convert that local government channel to the trunk network. The state of Connecticut has been gracious enough to offer us space on the network for that purpose. And there's been some obstacles why we haven't done that, primarily because your mutual aid partners in Rhode Island, westerly, rely on that channel as well. So my thought is to start thinking about budgeting for 800 megahertz radios for your schools and any other place that you have one of these radios. And we don't have to do this turnkey. We can do it as your budget allows. You can surely operate in an environment where both the VHF and the 800 operate at the same time. The reasons we want to do this, the VHF system is getting tired. Most of your repeaters are end of life. If something fails, we have to come up with another solution to make it work. We can no longer go to the factory and buy new equipment for that. And that channel is so important to you because of its interaction. Groton Town uses it as well. I've spoken to them a little bit about the same idea, and they're on board with it. They don't use it as much as you do, but the thought here is that we put a small control station, which is nothing more than a mobile radio and a power supply, in the current location at each one of these schools. So for them, it would be no different. It would just be it'd be the same looking radio, same type of microphone. There'd be no learning curve for them. So potential sources to purchase this would be through the state. The state of Connecticut does have grant opportunities specifically for this, and usually it's for less than $20,000 at a time. And for that kind of money, we could probably get 5 or 6 different radios. It's something that if you wanted to talk further about, I can definitely get the wheels moving. It's not an overnight process to get this money, but it is an effective way of doing it. The state of Connecticut obtains a general grant through Homeland Security, and it's up to the Interoperability Committee to distribute that throughout the state. So Stonington, because of our geographic location on the edge of the state, most of the fiber optic networks terminate for us right at the state line. The fiber optic network that your radio system uses is owned and managed by the state of Connecticut, primarily the E911 folks. The fiber optic network traditionally is very reliable because it's called a sonnet. It's a ring. If one end fails, it goes west. If the other end fails, it goes east. You don't have that luxury. You're at the end of the line, and that's called a folded ring. A folded ring has one way in and only that same way out. So if there is a fiber optic failure, your system operates independent of the state network. That has happened numerous times, more times than we would like. It's not a fault of yours. It's not a fault of the state. It's quite honestly, it's because of the way that network was originally designed. So there's 2 things that are taking place in the background right now. The state of Connecticut is looking at a microwave link, which is a wireless link that would connect your site in the backyard of the police department to the Winnechaug Hill site in North Stonington. It is a line of sight link at about 169 feet on your tower, 145 feet on the Winnechaug Hill tower would get us a line of sight to that. The state does need to work on a lease agreement with the owner of the tower at Winnechaug Hill, and that owner is American Tower. Talking with them yesterday about this, they're a little bit reluctant just to jump into it because of the cost involved with that lease, but they did agree to continue with the engineering. I think we're going to get that resolved primarily because of the engineering factor, the need of it. You are in a folded ring. if this was just a duplication of services, it wouldn't be so important. But this would be your primary method of connecting to the network. So they've been pretty good about understanding that. Like I said, this is a pretty important part of the network. It benefits them as well, by all means, because then it would allow them to also connect Groton to that site.
So Richard, that's a no cost to that the state would bear the cost for this issue?
So the state of Connecticut, they're going to ask you to pay for some of this, and I've already pushed back on that, primarily because it is a state network. You are a subscriber. You are no longer an owner or maintainer of the system. Therefore, I don't advise you to ever purchase any more capital items. Part of the original agreement was to pay for the original site. That was your buy-in to the network. And now you're obligated to pay for the yearly maintenance as per that agreement. But you're surely not obligated to purchase any infrastructure. Clayton Norgraves of the state has been very good about that. He understands that. And again, it's a funding issue for them. They just need to work through their system. Capital dollars that were allocated at the beginning of the year really are not there anymore, as a result of them shifting their budget around. But I do see this happening based on the fact that, like I said, you are on a folded ring, and it does need to be done.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so your general public safety systems, which prior to you being on the 800 system for the state, included the police department. But of course, they're very important still because you operate your fire department and EMS on there. The current system operates on Motorola MTR 2000 radios. Those radios have not been manufactured since 1996. The radios that you have are still working. We have allocated the police backup as a fire backup, just in case we ever need that. But again, something to think about capital wise is divesting yourself out of that network. Either we replace it with new equipment, or we change philosophies. That would not be just a decision made by us. We'd have to include the fire department, of course, in those discussions. The fire department are pretty adamant about VHF. The chief can attest to that relationship. That it's not always as seamless as we'd like. The message I'm trying to convey here is those radios are old, and we need to pay attention to them. Particularly the Tagwant site, the primary VHF antenna, which is on the top of that tower, is damaged. About 6 weeks ago, I did a cable sweep test on that, and at about 160 feet, there is damage to that antenna. So it is affecting their transmission. To what degree, I can't really predict, but there is definitely there's something going on there that does need to be rectified. Just as a notice that you have voting receiver sites. A voting receiver site is nothing more than an extra set of ears that are located out in the field that help your portable two-way radio get back into your network. It's called a voter site. One of them you have is located at the Eagle Park building, which is owned by the Mashantuckets off of Route 2. That building is no longer operated by the Mashantuckets. They own the building, but they have leased it out to General Dynamics. And part of the lease agreement does include conditions for you to continue to have free use of that rooftop space. So we made sure that was included in all that. So there's no worries there. It's just something that you might want to understand, that if we do need to access that, it's no longer just a simple call to me. It's a call to General Dynamics as well, and it's not instant access. There's badging that takes place. It does take a little bit to get in there. The last item is really just a notice. Chief, you probably got this already from Wayne from Region 4. FirstNet is having their virtual outreach summit this coming Thursday. It's a kind of this particular webinar is pretty interesting because it talks about location-based services that are available for FirstNet subscribers. It's just another tool in your toolbox for you to use. I urge any of you to, if you have time this Thursday, just to log in for a few minutes and just take a look at it. It is pretty interesting. Some of the technologies that are available to us today that were not available 5 or 6 years ago. It makes you really understand the technology a little better, and the fact that there's so much more we can do with less. That's the important part. We don't want to burden people with more equipment. You don't need another widget. You have plenty of them. The idea of the FirstNet location-based services is more of a safety item than anything else. I think that's it. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any of the commissioners have any questions? Sure.
Yeah, Richard, hi, this is Commissioner Tabor. How are you?
Good, sir. How are you?
Not bad. Good seeing you again.
You look great.
Well, thanks. Your camera must not be very clear, but thank you though. And I know we're going to be discussing it later on, but just out of curiosity, why the trend for Johnson to go with a larger radio unit when, our kind of understanding was that, portability and a smaller sized radio unit was preferable. What's their logic?
Right, exactly. So this only affects the mobiles. It does not affect the portables.
Okay.
The portable radios are still the same model that you would use. That's called the VP 6000. That model is actually going very strong. That is their leader. That is their number one seller that they have. The main reason that they're switching over, to be quite honest with you, is JVC Kenwood purchased E.F. Johnson.
Yeah.
And in doing so, their philosophy has always been to make each one of their chassis more adaptable to different technologies so they can reduce their manufacturing expense. They could take one box and make it a VHF radio. They can make it a 450 radio, a 700 radio, a Next Edge radio, and they can use that chassis overseas. It's purely economic. It has nothing to do with performance. It's just a matter of applying Japanese technology to it. I've used the 7000 radio. It's very similar in function to the radios that you have. So I don't think there'd be much of a learning curve. But like I said, it does require a little bit more real estate under the seat. You just don't have it. You don't have it in the cruiser. There's a lot going on underneath there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that answers that. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
They kind of lost me on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tabor. Chief, do you have any comments at all on the report from Richard?
Yeah, a couple things, Richard. Is how did you climb up the 160-foot tower at Togwell?
No, I do not climb. I use software.
I know that. That was a pulse that you sent up there, and actually, I understood everything you finally said. So I understand geek finally.
I know.
Goes on. So I think with that is as we move forward, you mentioned a lot about the VHF side of things and where it needs to go and should go. So I think what we really need is a sort of a priority list, especially when it comes to the fire stuff that's there, because from the police end, we're pretty set. But from the fire end of things, if we need to replace some of those older radios, you said 1996, right? Then we should be definitely looking at what it's going to take to replace those, or start to move in that direction, because what's going to happen, it's going to break down on, Christmas Eve, and we're going to be,
that's right.
Yeah, it's going to be a problem for us.
That's exactly right.
So if you can give us what it's going to take to replace those, so that we have an idea what it needs to be done. especially when it comes to that. I don't know about the antenna on Togwonk. That's a heavy lift there, I would guess, to have that repaired.
Not so much. It really isn't.
I'm not climbing up there.
No, it really isn't a big deal as far as replacing the antenna. That would require about a half a day's worth of crane work. Nobody's going to climb that tower. It's a monopole. What I will do is I will come up with options for you. Togwonk is a very, very good location for you. It's centrally located into your jurisdiction. One of the things I think that we should consider is using Togwonk as your primary fire location. That's something I want to talk to Kevin Burns about. We've done some preliminary radio testing with that. Again, we don't want to spend legacy money. I don't like spending legacy money. And if you're going to spend money, you're going to spend it on new technology that's going to give you a lifespan of another 15 or 20 years. Your VHF system has long since paid for itself. So I don't want to think in terms of repairing anything. I want to think more in terms of your next generation services for the fire department.
Well, we do have the extra channel or talk group with the state system where I was able to get those through through them, but I don't think that there's a resolve on the part of the fire departments to switch over to 800. So with that, we sort of have an obligation to maintain that part of the system. So I think we have to focus in on some of those things that we feel are going to most likely fail in the next, hour to 10 months.
I agree.
We have to get it. So if you can get us what we need to do, and the price approximately. So the antenna fix, I would guess from my experience so far, is be about $5,000 to repair that antenna.
Yeah, I would say you're right.
Yeah.
I would say that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So, Chief Stewart, you just said that if I understood you correctly, our colleagues in the fire department are not ready to switch over, and therefore we are obligated to maintain an old system. Why?
Yes.
Can you explain why we're obligated to do that if we're ready to switch over, but they are not? Cannot we not have that discussion with them and encourage them to join us in moving to the newer technology?
First of all, if they're going to switch, they'd probably have us try and pay for it. So that's also a heavy lift on our end from the municipality point of view, because they are taxing districts themselves. So it's up to them as their own independent fire departments to make a decision on whether they want to come on board or not. I have opened the door for that so that I do have a talk group available to them if they want to come on the 800 system. If not, then they continue to operate on their own. But as the town, we still have to maintain the equipment to allow that to happen, because we still dispatch for one of the fire departments, Quambog, right now. So we have to maintain our system from a public safety point of view. That secondary system now, which is the fire system, also acts as a backup to the state system in case we ever had any problems with that. And it also, Richard talked about the local government channel. That is a, not to be too geeky here, that is a VHF, which is an old technology radio frequency that we have, from a techie point of view, put it onto our 800 system so that we can have it work within the police department and the state system. So he talked about moving like some of the schools, et cetera, to the 800 system. That's a little bit of low hanging fruit from our end, but the big thing is going to be the repair of those 1996 radios. That's why we switched to the state system, because our police radios were 1996 or earlier. And we knew they were done. We weren't finding parts.
Right.
So that's why we moved on to the state system, which is really a very high-tech, state-of-the-art system when it comes to communications. So I hope that answered your question. I'm not sure. I sort of went over the river and through the woods.
The additional question, though, I guess I would ask, and maybe this already exists, Chief, or the chair, but it sounds like we would benefit from a strategic plan as to how we're going to move forward together with partners off of the old technology and onto, the entirely new system. Because I think, to your point, Richard, the idea of investing in these legacy systems is, you can pour a lot of money down that hole for a long time. It gets more expensive. So instead, it'd be great to have a strategic plan and to have whatever conversations we need to have with those other partners to see what is it going to take to also bring them forward with us. And again, maybe that's something that already exists, but if not, it seems like it'd be really helpful to have a fairly comprehensive plan about how we're going to get there.
Chief, you've had ongoing conversations with all the fire districts in the past, haven't you?
Yeah, we've talked to them. Certain fire districts do have the ability to go on the 800 system. For instance, the Mystic Fire Department, because they have the fireboat over there that we work with all the time, they have the ability to go onto the 800 system. Old Mystic Fire Department has a command vehicle that has the ability to switch over. Basically, Lisa, you have different governmental agencies that have their own mission, and they have their own thought process and ideals on what they want to do and how they want to communicate. That may not line up ideally with us as far as how we do things, but we have the technology now to sort of be a state of the art with the state and our law enforcement partners. We are offered to the other first responders to have that ability. So, for instance, L&M Hospital, we paved the way for L&M Hospital to their paramedics because they travel all over southeastern Connecticut to be on the state system instead of an old legacy system like we have. General Dynamics, even because they're all over the place, will also be looking at that, and they're able to do that because of the nature of their work. So we have looked at that. Probably the closest one that we have right now that potentially could go on the 800 system would be Stonington Ambulance, that is located obviously in the town of Stonington. And if they have to travel to Yale, New Haven, or if Rhode Island comes up to Providence, to Hasbro, or to Rhode Island Hospital, that they would have the ability to talk back to our headquarters and to transmit that way. Richard did mention Rhode Island. We're still in a lot of discussions with the state of Rhode Island. Actually, one of their antennas is just right over the line in Rhode Island. You can see it right behind West Vine Street School. And one day they will flip the switch, and we will flip the switch, and their antennas become ours become theirs, and it should work out pretty good once that eventually kicks off. But there's some technology issues with that. It's called the core. There's a core in Connecticut and a core in Rhode Island that are basically supercomputers, and they have to be connected and they have to talk to each other to allow that. My radio in my car is identified in the state of Rhode Island as being okay to be on the system. And then if it's a Rhode Island police vehicle, it's okay to be on the Connecticut system. And it's taken a lot of work and a lot of technology, a lot of discussions, very high level geek stuff. I'm understanding what Richard's saying right now. I go in the room when these guys talk and I'm like, forget it. I'm going to get a coffee. But it's a huge project. We're probably 75% there when it comes to where we really want to be, which is gigantic for us. I mean, to get to the point that we're at, that we can actually talk to most of our neighbors. And as Richard mentioned, you have Ledyard, you have Norwich, Groton City, and some of the other ones that are coming on board. And that becomes very important to us from a mutual aid or a critical incident issue. The state police, we're able to talk to the state police all the time. That was unheard of, a year and a half ago. That just didn't happen. So from the fire point of view, they are not fans of 800 radios because of the noise cancellation, it's called. So when I talk on my portable radio and a car whizzes by me, you can't hear the car whiz by. Fire departments like to hear when one of their personnel is on the radio, because if they're in a burning building, they can actually hear what's going on. And That's one of the things reasons they don't usually flip over to an 800 system. Plus the radios themselves, the individual radios are much more expensive. So there's a big capital outlay for most of these fire districts. And they have a system that is working. Granted, it's old, but it is working. And
Chief, they also have auxiliary equipment on that radio system. They're not only radios, but scanners and other items that they'd have to change over to also. So that's a reluctance on some part of the fire districts because there's extensive amount of other equipment they have, not just portable radios. Is that right, Richard?
That's correct. They've become so reliant on that technology, and they've built it up throughout the years. For us to ask them to switch is a very big lift for them. I think our best move, quite honestly, is just to provide them with an infrastructure that we know is reliable and that does not support the legacy equipment in any way. There's VHF systems available today that we can install that'll be totally agnostic to what they do. That's number one, and it kind of allows the chief to sleep a little better at night. Because right now that is sort of our single point of failure is those VHF radios. There are ways to get them on the 800 system behind the scenes that allow them to use their hardware until such time as they're ready. But like the chief said, they're a pretty tough cookie to crack. You know, they don't like changing technology too much. They have their ways. You know, I like technology because it's nuts and bolts, and the answers are always right in front of us. What I'm getting at is there's oftentimes the differences in services have differences of opinions because of different personalities and legacy understandings. So we tend to stay out of those discussions. But unfortunately, the chief can't. He has to live that. So I can make all the recommendations in the world, but he still has to answer to those different differences of opinions. So I think what our objective here really is to come up with a proposal for a long-term plan, a long-term strategic plan to make sure the town of Stonington is never at a liability for the fire service or the police service, and that it's something that you can afford to do, and every dollar that you spend is on dollars that are for new technology and not for old maintenance. I'm very adamant about not spending. I just can't stand it. I don't like the idea of doing that. You might as well just flip your wallet open and let it fly out because you don't regain those dollars.
So do we need a motion? I think, Richard, just the way you summed that up is exactly what, at least for my part, I think is useful. But is that where we're going? Do we need a motion to do that?
Here's what I can do, and I'd prefer to do this if I can. I'd like to report back to you either next meeting or the meeting after, whatever you'd like, with some options. I want to give you all the options on the table, give you the advantages and disadvantages of each, and most importantly, the cost of each. And then you decide which option is best for you, and then it's my job to make it work within your criteria. You know, I think that's really the best way of going forward.
Richard, I think that's a good idea. I think we could put you on the agenda for next month, and by that time you'll have some of the other things that are back from the factory, the other things. So why don't we just schedule this, put this on the agenda for next month, and discuss what we need to have at that time. I think Commissioner Elmer, you're still there. I thought you had a question.
I did. And very quickly, Richard, nice to see you again.
Yes, sir. Nice to see you.
How's your nephew and niece doing?
They're doing great.
Good.
They have their babies are almost 2 years old now.
There we go. Good
Yep.
work. I'm very curious. Earlier in your conversation, you mentioned a grant. This may be a question for the chair or for the chief. Who's responsible for applying for that grant?
The town. The town would apply to the state of Connecticut to DSEP. The chief knows the players there all very well. And what we would do is simply we would use the template that they would provide to us. And it's very simple. We identify the need, we identify the equipment cost, and we identify the projected lifespan of that equipment. And then there's a simple vote, in Rocky Hill for it.
Okay, is there a narrow or a broad window on that?
No, it's very broad. It's a very broad meeting. It's a very broad. For transparency, I am on that committee, so obviously I'd have to abstain from voting for this. But to be quite honest with you, we almost every other month we vote on this, and I've been part of this committee for 3 or 4 years, and we've yet to deny one.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Well, we'll put you on the agenda for next month, and you can get back to us with some options. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, all.
All right.
Chair, I'm sorry, just one follow-up question. I'd hope, and I imagine the process is that the options would be considered with the chief, and the chief will bring back to us his recommendations regarding those options at that meeting. Is that correct?
Sure. Richard would get back to me, hopefully before the meeting, and let me know what he found out, what the costs are, et cetera, and then we can talk about the funding opportunities. And if Richard can get the paperwork to me too on the state grant, which I did not know about, that would be good. Then we can get down that road to see what's out there, especially from the school point of view. These particular radios, that's low hanging fruit, really.
Chief, how many schools have radios now? Do you remember? I don't remember.
Every one of them, so it's all 8.
Okay.
That's great. All right. Thank you again, Richard. We'll talk to you next month. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
holiday.
You too.
Thank you.
All.
Okay, we'll move on now to traffic and boating. We have an email from the state of Connecticut regarding the rumble strips. Chief, you want to talk about that? There's some questions about the size of the roads and the lanes that we know. We really don't have that many roads that even qualify for that type of thing. Is that correct?
Well, it would mostly apply to the state roads, which they did the sort of the big ones, 184, 201, Route 1. And then they did a couple of local roads, North Main Street and Montauk Avenue. I think they probably did the vast majority of the ones that we want to do because you have to have a lane width. So if you looked at Togwonk, El Harvey, Wheeler Road, even Jerry Brown Road, you're not going to get the width in certain areas of those particular roads. So I think we're probably all set unless somebody has a particular location that they feel it's necessary. One of the things that the state always looks at is whether it's in a residential neighborhood, because there is some sound that's associated with the rumble strip, just like on the highway when you go off a little bit on the right side, you'll hear the buzz sound. So if you're in a residential area and you get too much of that going on, it could create some complaints from the residents there. So I think they did a pretty decent job a number of years ago on putting them in around town. And unless you guys know or see some of the location, I think we're probably going to be all set for now.
Any of the commissioners have any comments about that?
Yeah, just a quick observation, and in saying this, I'm not a highway pavement expert, but I've reviewed it a little bit, and it seems from what I've been able to discern, the rumble strip installations themselves seem to be less maintenance prone when they're put in when there's a new highway concurrent with the new highway installation. If they're done as a retrofit, that seems to lead to more maintenance to the roadbed itself. So I'm sure the highway department's well aware of that as well, but that's just, again, that's an observation I've gleaned from doing a little bit of reading and studying, but certainly not an expert. But I know the ones that you referenced before, Chief, I think they did those when they were, redoing the entire road.
Yeah.
So,
yep. And to be honest with you, we haven't had, since they put it in, a horrendous winter either yet.
Correct.
The plows have had a chance to do their magic on the rumble strips yet. So
it's also the freeze and thaw cycle that has an impact on them if they're done not as a concurrent installation. It appears anyway.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Chief. There's no action tonight on that. The next item regarding it's suggestions for downtown Mystic, and this is regarding a letter that received from Mr. Larkin regarding a temporary 15-minute zone. Is anybody on the line that wants to talk about this? Okay. Roger, no one raising their hand?
Not as of yet. And remember, if you're on a call-in line, if you press *3 on your phone, you'll raise your hand and we'll be able to call on you, unmute you so you can speak to this.
Well, let me just, this is a letter from Joseph Larkin regarding that he thinks that he believes that we should have a 15-minute zone at the corner of Haley Street and Mystic, right where it comes onto Cottrell Street. And the corner lot, there was a 15-minute zone in front of the Mystic Soup Company. And the chief, you talked to them, and they felt that it was more advantageous to them to have a regular slot there rather than a 15-minute slot. So when we redid Cottrell Street, we took that 15-minute slot off there. As to the location that he's suggesting that we put a 15-minute slot, the issue, the area is not conducive to putting that size in there because we need to swing there for the large trucks, especially the fire trucks. Correct, Chief?
Yeah, when Cottrell Street was engineered, we had the obviously the traffic engineer, and then we paid extra to have him do the fire truck, ladder truck radius turns there. So you're within 25 feet of an intersection, his proposal. So we eliminated the 15-minute spot in front of the salad company. And I'm opposed to putting it back in just for one person so they can get their salad. I don't think that's, I'm not for it, especially from a point of view of it being within 25 feet and then plus the turn radiuses for the fire trucks.
You're not anti-salad, are you?
Do we have any of the commissioners have any comments? Any other commissioners have comments on this proposal by Mr. Larkin? Well, since Mr. Chief, I suggest that would you send a letter to respond back to Mr. Larkin telling him that why we've decided that this is not an appropriate use of that slot.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you. The next one is the Mystic Parking Management Plan. And this is a committee that has been meeting twice. It's the Mystic Parking Study Committee that I've been attending. The first selectman's been attending this, and we have another meeting scheduled for December 21st. I believe I sent all the commissioners the scoring and priorities of the parking study too first off, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but they're the two that came out. Number one, the priority already was commercial core areas should be reserved for short-term customers and visitors parking to the extent possible. And the second area is private parking facilities should be viewed as potential public parking assets. Those are the two that came out the top from all the members of the committee. And they're presently looking, they've got members of the committee presently looking at private lots to see if they can arrange for them to be used part-time for additional parking. The town presently is working on mitigating the water that takes place on the Broadway lot behind the old voting booth. And they're working on that. They will get some additional parking there, not a lot, maybe 30 slots or so. They're also have talked with at Acme Wire. Acme Wire would agree to provide some of their property on the north side of their building for parking, but that's something that would have to be paved. They're talking to the churches about using some of the lots and when it's not being used for services. So the committee is moving ahead. There's really nothing that has been set in stone yet, but they're continuing to look out on our side as well as on the Groton side of ways to increase parking for downtown Mystic. So it's ongoing, and I'll get back to you with the report when more things develop. The next meeting, I believe, is on December 21st. The commissioners have any questions on the parking study?
No.
Chief, do you have anything? Okay.
I think he's offline.
All right. So, well, as that develops, I will get back to the commissioners on the things. The next is Boulevard wayfaring signs for the Denison Pequot Nature Center. Is there anybody online that would like to talk about the letter we received from the Nature Center on the homestead on the wayfarer signs?
Yes, hi, I'm Davnet. I'm here and would like to speak for a moment.
And we just tell us your name and who you are.
Sure, I'm Davnet Schaefer, and I'm the Executive Director at the Nature Center. So thank you for giving us some time tonight. We really appreciate that. And yes, we were requesting wayfaring signs on the attraction signs, particularly along Coogan Boulevard. Because for about the past year, we have had an application in with the state DOT to get our name on the attraction signs on the highway. And as such, we do need to have the coordinating wayfaring signs on the local roads. Unfortunately, a few weeks ago, we knew the signs were down when the new signs were going up, and Cassandra, our marketing communications person, reached out to Chief Stewart and asked when our signs were going to go back up, and he let us know that they had actually been removed from the plan. I subsequently found out there was a little bit of a misunderstanding where the Nature Center name was removed off the plan. It had been on the plans way back since when Jason Vincent started making those plans. And it also had been kind of put aside then on the highway department. So I do want to thank Chief Stewart and the highway department, because by the next day they had our temporary signs right back up. We really appreciate that. They moved very quickly, and Paul Thomas, I spoke to him from highway department, got right out there. So that was very helpful, because we do have quite a lot of traffic that comes to the Nature Center, particularly groups of children and tourists. So I have been made aware that there isn't necessarily funding. The town doesn't necessarily have funding for this. So, the Nature Center would do everything that we could to help provide that funding if it would be possible to work with you to get our name up there. Kind of in a nutshell, if there were any questions.
All right, Chief, you got any comments about that, please?
Well, for the past 2 years, I believe one of your board members has been attending our meetings. And we worked out sort of to have the Denison Homestead to get rid of most of those signs, because you had a column of signs going up. You had the farmer's market, you had the Nature Center, you had the Homestead. And once in a while, I think there was another one thrown in for good measure. So it was sort of decided when we were doing the wayfaring signs is, can you just make it the campus, one sign instead of this stacked up bunch of things? Because when you're talking Coogan Boulevard and those other ones, you have to make them pretty large, and those become pretty much sales that are out there. I would recommend that the between Cassandra, yourself, and Jess, you guys sit down and figure out what you guys want, because we spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, and we're out there, and we were certainly under the impression that Jess was part of the whole kit and caboodle of the campus situation, and we were trying to eliminate some signs up there and go that route, because we didn't want this stack of Denison this, Denison that. Don't get me wrong. whatever can be worked out, we're willing to do it. But we already spent quite a bit of time on this. So that's a little frustration on my part that here we are again.
Right, I understand, and I share that frustration because that was a misrepresentation. The Nature Center is its own organization, and those decisions were made without our knowledge, without the board's knowledge. So yes, Jess is on our board, but that was a mistake that was misrepresented. And the Nature Center is a year-round attraction that brings thousands of people to Mystic and students. So we do need to have our own billing as our own organization. So I do understand your frustration, and I share that. I'm hoping that we can somehow remedy that so we can get the Nature Center name up there as well.
Well, we certainly want to get as much publicity for you as we can. Chief, we're going to be, the signs went back up. Didn't they go back up again?
Yeah, it's sort of the old ones that we were trying to get rid of. So we didn't make any progress here. We actually went backwards because we did add more signs. So I'm not quite sure where we want this bird to land. No pun intended for the Nature Center, but where do we want this bird to land?
Yeah, and I understand that my understanding was that that those would be temporary if we could then be put on the attraction sign.
So I'm sorry, Devin, thank you for being here. We have in the packet some printouts of signs. Are these not the proposed signs that would go up?
I'm not sure which packet you have.
So Darren, we got a packet which includes visuals, which I thought were what we were discussing, signage that would go in different places.
Correct. Those are the ones that were the proposal probably a number of years ago now. I think it was probably in 2009. And our discussion at that time was because they wanted a variety of different things. That was through one of their board members. So it was agreed upon to do, can't we just do Denison campus? And instead of Nature Center and a variety of different things. And that was sort of decided upon probably a year and a half ago now. So then I was obviously a little like, oh boy, what did we miss here on this one? And how are we going to resolve this? Because how many signs can we put on that says attraction, Hartford Health, Pequot Nature Center, Denison Homestead Museum, all of those things, and we were trying to eliminate all that. And as you'll find,
that's only two things, though. Hartford Healthcare is separate, right? And it
Yep.
says the one that I'm looking at least. Maybe I can hold it up here for the folks. This is
Sure.
what it looks like, and there
Yeah,
are two. One
Yeah.
is for the Pequot Seapost Nature Center, and the other one is for the Denison Homestead Museum. So is this what you are asking us to endorse, Dominic?
right. So that was the one that was put forth, I believe, when Dave Ladazuri was putting them forth for Hartford Healthcare. And subsequently, the state has said that the Hartford Healthcare cannot be on the attraction sign. So they have a separate sign. So right now there is just it says attractions, and then it says Denison Homestead Museum. And then, yes, we would want to have Denison, we would want to have the full name, which if we could, which would be Denison Pequot Seapost Nature Center as a second sign.
You know, the larger these signs get, the more difficult it is for people to read them as they're going on traffic. The more you add into this, they're actually become a distraction in some cases.
Yeah,
that's
but it would
another
just
issue
be
that we
this.
have
Is
to be
that right,
concerned.
then? This is what the sign would look like.
That's correct.
that was a proposal, Lisa, that didn't pass the police commission that I'm aware of.
Yeah, it did
Okay.
not pass.
So is that what we need to vote on is attraction, Denison Pequot Seapost Nature Center, and Denison Homestead Museum?
I think that we'd like to see exactly the size of the signs and where they were going to be posted before we vote on that. So without seeing that, And seeing the size of that, I don't think that we're ready to vote on any of that.
Well, my understanding is the signs, there really isn't much wiggle room on that, that the signs have to be regulation per the state DOT. They have to be consistent with the signs that are there. And that is true, that one is, as I mentioned, that's the one that Dave Latazori put in, but in the previous form, which I believe was approved by the Traffic Commission, was the one that Jason Vincent had done previously, and our name was on there. And that's the one where the decision was made subsequently to just have it represented as Dennison Homestead Museum, which was, was not approached to me or anyone else at the Nature Center other than Jess. So that decision was made by mistake.
So if these are regulation size, then the only question is what goes on the sign. Is that correct?
Correct. My understanding from Paul Thomas, when I did speak to him, when he was putting up the signs, is that, they can fit a second panel underneath or wherever, in relation to the Dennison Homestead campus one. It's just a matter of how high it has to be off the ground. And I do understand the goal is to simplify signs. Then we would be able to remove some of the other signs that are, on the random corners and in other areas, and just have them on these attraction signs.
Can I just ask a question or interject? This is Commissioner Tabor. I'm confused now a bit myself whether this whole campus notion is out the window. And it would be helpful for me if not tonight, because I would feel a bit uncomfortable voting on anything tonight, because we've heard from different board members with different input relative to the signage. Is it possible? And obviously we're attempting, want to do the appropriate things so that everybody's satisfied with what the appropriate signage is. But is there a way that we can get some continuity or consistency from the various organizations here involved, including Pequot CPIS, the other entities, whether it's the Dennison Homestead, so that we have some definitive direction as to what the signs are that you're in fact looking to have installed? Because I'm appreciative of mixed signals maybe that happens occasionally organizationally. I'm not being critical there. I'm just, from someone that has to vote on the signage, hopefully finally, it would be helpful to me at an individual basis to get some, one final offering from the various organizations, whatever that may be. That would be helpful.
Yeah, I can certainly do that for you. I think what the problem was that it is true that Jess is a board member, but I am the executive director and nobody else on our board was aware of this. So I have spoken to Jess. I don't know if he's on the call tonight. I have spoken to Steve Solly, who's the president of the Dennison Homestead. And they are aware that both organizations need separate billing. That the Dennison Pequot Seapost Nature Center is a separate organization and a separate 501c3 that attracts a significant amount of people to Mystic. So, absolutely, I can get something. And as I said, I have spoken to them. They are aware that I'm coming to this meeting to request this. I'm not asking that their sign be taken down, but that both organizations have billing on the attraction sign.
Okay. That would be helpful, Deb, just so we know what we're, at least for me anyway, I'd like to know what we're voting on, because, not that long ago, we installed the campus signs because that was the kind of the direction that we thought your organization wanted to go. So whatever happened, it happened, but let's get it clarified so that we're voting and everybody's on the same page, as they say.
So Darren,
Absolutely.
Can you come back to us in our January meeting with exactly what you'd like to have, and so we can get a visual on that, and we'll be more than willing to look at that and vote on that at that meeting in January?
Sure, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. Sandra?
Still muted, Cassandra.
Thank you, Dadnet. This is Commissioner Tabor again. That would be helpful.
Okay, so
Well,
the thing that
okay.
we just wanted to clarify is to make sure, do we have, as two separate organizations, have to be on one sign together? Because that's the challenge, if we share a location, but we are two very different organizations. So for us to move forward to make sure we're responsible and following your wishes, are we required to find a way to marry the Dennison Homestead and the Nature Center?
Not necessarily. You just need to show us what the size of the sign is going to be and
Okay.
that it conforms, and they could be one under the other, you know. And
Okay.
we want to see exactly who else is on that sign.
And we can appreciate that. We just wanted to make sure we follow the guidelines. And it sounds like from Chief Stewart that it sounded like from that perspective, the Dennison Homestead had 3 signs versus we had 1 sign. So we just want to make sure that we're mindful of what the goal is, but to best achieve, the organizations represented, again, because our audiences are very different. If we don't have the words Nature Center, it will be very confusing to our audience that is trying to navigate those roads.
That's fine. So that's fine.
Thank you.
So we'll table this, and you'll come back to see us in January.
Yes.
The only concern I have is real estate. It's location, location, location. That whether that real estate has already been taken up in some of those signs when it came to where we're pointing people to and what was going on. So I know on a couple of them it was Mystic Aquarium, Hartford Health, and Dennison Campus. And the question is going to be, because of the size of those signs, because they're sails, when the wind hits them, on whether they can add a 4th one. So you have 2. I'm not sure. Is it going to be 3 organizations from your location or 2?
So Dan, I think what we just heard is that Hartford Healthcare can't be featured as an attraction under any circumstances. So that takes 1 off.
Well, we're going to have to check with DOT because what's up on
They're
the
not
highway.
an attraction, right? They're a medical office, so that makes sense.
It does, but we're going to have to check with DOT on what they've actually allowed up on the highway, because what's up on the highway has to basically match what's on our roads. And there was a lot of discussion about Hartford Health and getting signs because of the health end of it and directing people into it, the economic development end of it, et cetera. And that was really the push for a lot of the signage, also with the aquarium. And the seaport really wasn't part of it. It was more the Golden Triangle up there. And it started with Jason years ago, went on into Public Works to figure out what kind of signage or wayfaring signs that could be there. Economic development was involved, all those type of things. So I think we have to see whether there's enough real estate on those signs for a second sign. And I believe there probably could be, but they may not be as big as what everybody wants them to be. But we can certainly take a look at that. The goal is to have you guys have your signs, but it's a little bit frustrating because the amount of time that we've spent already on this has been significant to make this happen. And that changes.
I understand that, and I, as I said, I share that frustration, and I appreciate you willing to kind of go back into this a little bit with us, just so that we can get some billing up there as well. So I very much appreciate that.
Great.
Right.
All
And
right, so
we have to talk about the older signs too. If we can, if certain new ones go up, some of the old ones can hopefully come back down without, as long as if it's not hurting you people as far as directing people in either. We don't want to do that. But
yeah, that would be my expectation. If some of those go up, then we would be able to remove some of the extraneous ones.
And we want to accommodate you best we can, because we want to support, the organizations. I mean, there's no question, as I've been a member of, myself for many years. So that's not the issue. We just want we want to make sure that we're doing what you folks want, And that, as I said before, not to be repetitive, that we're all on the same page signage wise.
Could we ask, Chief, that perhaps, and Devnet, it sounds like, Chief, you have some other concerns about other signage. It would be great if perhaps between now and the next meeting, you and the DPNC staff represented here could discuss all of that and come back with an agreed plan, because I want to make sure, Chief, that whatever your concerns are about those other signs are met in a comprehensive way. So perhaps that's a way forward.
Right. It's not only the nature center, but it's the homestead too.
Yeah,
So,
which is of course a
right.
separate entity. So DevNet, it would be helpful if you can make sure that the people who should represent these institutions appropriately are there.
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll table this to the next meeting, and Chief, you get together with the needed parties, for all this, because there's going to be a number of people that are going to have to be met with. So thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. Do whatever we can to accommodate you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay. All right, and this is missing from the agenda, but we have an E item. We received an email from Susan Alston regarding from Mary Hall Road regarding traffic on the River Road and Mary Hall Road. Is Susan on the line? Roger, is she?
I do not see anybody raise their hand. Remember, you can press *6 on your phone and we will notice you and we'll call on you.
I believe she was signed in earlier.
She was on the line earlier. I saw her signed in earlier. So she's not here now.
Excuse me, I should say press *3 on your phone and you'll raise your hand and we will we'll notice you. So if you're on the call and you'd like to speak, please press *3. No one is raising their hand.
All right. Well, Chief, this certainly is an issue. You actually used to live in that area at one time, I know, and maybe we should reach out to her and ask her to come to the next meeting again regarding the issue.
Yeah, I pretty much know exactly what it is. It's that particular neighborhood down there, River Road, Mary Hall Road, is back when I was a kid growing up down there. You could ride your bike, you could walk, you could do a variety of different things down there. But like many of the neighborhoods in town, you've had new building projects come in, you've had new marinas come in, you've had a variety of different things happen in those particular areas. So the population goes up, which equals more traffic. Today's day and age, people are in a hurry. They want to get to where they want to go, and that's where you go. And a lot of people try and walk down there. It's a big biking area, and you're going to have some issues down there. We've been down there quite a bit on a variety of different things, whether it be littering and other issues. Each year we have to get down there because of the marinas, where all of a sudden for the winter it's pretty good, and then once you hit April, May, the residents start waving the flag saying, "Hey, uncle, the cars are going too fast," and we have to get down there and send the cars down there, cruisers.
I believe we did a traffic study down there on Mechanic Street down that end a few years ago regarding this issue about excessive speed in that area. And we downloaded the information. The speeds weren't that high over the posted limit. I think that people wanted to get a reduction in the speed limit there on Mechanic Street, and we found that it really wasn't that high. So the problem is these roads are narrow. They're developed from cow paths in some cases, and they're not conducive to walking or riding your bike on there. So, but I'm sure that we're going to do what we can for enforcement in that area to show the flag. But maybe we could reach out to Susan and ask her if she'd like to come to the next meeting.
Sure, absolutely. I can actually show you pictures of my father and grandfather on horses on those roads. Pulling a milk cart.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question.
Approval of minutes for the Thursday, November 12th regular meeting. has been passed out. Does anybody have any?
Bob, Bill has a question.
Okay, Bill, I'm sorry.
Just a quick question on the previous topic.
I'm sorry.
And the chief will probably know best on this. The signage that's out there, the electronic one that as you're passing flags your speed, and I think there's one down by the nature center now. Are those portable and dispatched by the police department, or they come through the state?
It's actually from the police department. As a matter of fact, we just downloaded the information from that sign. The chief, you have we were concerned about that, about speeding up by the nature center.
Mhm.
And the chief has the statistics on that. That's our sign, and we have 2 of them or 3 of them, chief.
Actually, I have 5.
5, okay.
Well, actually 4. One got
One's broken.
one got mowed down by a truck over about a month and a half ago, which is not uncommon. We've actually had a pretty good run. We've lost them. They've ripped them off and threw them in the Atlantic Ocean. The only reason why we knew it was in the water was because the sign was still working. And somebody on a boat saw it down there, 5 miles an hour underwater. But we do our best to put them up in different areas. It is a little labor intensive to put them up. And sometimes the data can move on us pretty quick. We've downloaded a few times and had nothing come back. So it's a little hit or miss. But let's see, just under a month period on Pequot Seapost Road, the average speed is 31 miles an hour. So then you do have some 50, 57, 54, 55 miles an hour. Some of those are later at night. But I always preface that sometimes those speeds are emergency vehicles going to emergencies as well. So the sign doesn't differentiate whether it's an emergency vehicle or just somebody speeding. So the speed is 25 mile an hour speed limit. So it's 31, which is not terribly bad for that location or any location. But we're out there quite a bit. We've had officers do traffic on Pequot Seapost Road, right by the Nature Center on numerous occasions. So.
Mm-hmm. And I only ask because I think, is it a possible solution for River Road to have something there?
We've put on actually on Mary Hall Road where the person wrote the letter. I think it was probably off the top of my head. I could be wrong, about 18, 19 months ago. We put "Drive Like Your Kids Live Here" signs on Mary Hall Road. And the trouble you have is she's mentioned in the area by the brink. That's a straightaway right there. So you go past Mary Hall Road and then you headed towards Oxford Point area down that way, and you got a long straightaway. That's a pretty popular drag race area, or people open it up through that particular location.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Any other comments on that from the commissioners? Okay. Want to get a motion to approve the minutes from the
November 12th.
November 12th regular meeting. Any questions on the minutes as passed out to the commissioners? Have a motion to accept.
We'll make a motion to accept the commissioners meeting, or minutes of the commissioners meeting for November 12th, 2020.
Second.
Second.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Motion passed. Now we have the report of the chief. Karen, it's all yours.
All right, thank you. I know it was mentioned earlier about Stuff a Cruiser. That's going to be on Saturday. So if anybody's around and wants to swing by, it's usually a pretty good day. I know it's going to be a little bit on the slower side, I guess, if you want to do it because of COVID. There's also going to be that parade during the day as well with the fire departments. I'll try and go through this fairly quickly and then spend a little bit more time on the budget. Our yearly or monthly budget report is in front of you. It should be in your packet. We're about 40.4% through the fiscal year. We've used 41.3%. We haven't done the crisscross yet. That's usually around February. But everything other than regular overtime seems to be where we would expect it to be. Obviously, overtime has taken a pretty good hit because of some of the bigger cases we've had, and then plus being down the 3 officers and the 1 supervisor at that time. Monthly statistics, we are again in that COVID mode of being a little bit reactionary to things that are going on. So you're going to see some lower numbers in some ways as far as school checks go, because school hasn't been in session. They've been doing a lot of remote stuff. So numbers aren't really what they were used to seeing, but probably not surprising today. Our alarm report is there for your FYI. The special events schedule, obviously not too much is going on as far as special events. You have 2 letters from Post under E, and that was basically more for grant eligibility requirements to have the ability to, they needed certain requirements, so I had to write a letter and send that off to Post as more for an FYI. Same with number F, which is a crosswalk permit renewal. Obviously with West Broad Street School becoming St. Michael's School, and then St. Michael's School being vacant, it does change things around a little bit, but we still applied for the crosswalk permits depending on what's going on at these different locations. They may have to put those signs out in the road. Basically, if you're going to put something in the public right away on a state road like the, CAFL pedestrian signs, etc., you have to technically have a permit to do such. So with us having school crossing guards at some of those locations over the years, we renewed that permit, as well as downtown Pawcatuck. And Mel at Mel's Creamery, she has the sign, and she does put that out because you can't have the signs out after dark. So she does bring that in. So it doesn't go out very often, but if there's a big event, that's just permits that we have. You have under G, the budget commentary that came out a little bit later in your packets, probably yesterday or the day before. We have the 2021-22 budget request. If I could just go by that quick, we'll come back to it. We want to have a brief 2-on-1 discussion with Commissioner Bates, if you'd like to chime in on this, that we had a discussion about 2-on-1 with the 2-on-1 folks, including Lisa, and sort of 911 and how that works and doesn't work. And Lisa, I don't know if you could take a minute and sort of explain what happened in Pennsylvania and sort of our discussion that we had.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. And we had a terrific discussion with Chief Stewart about how we could work together to encourage the non-emergency calls for assistance that are more appropriate for the 211 service to go that direction. And we talked also at some length about cross-training opportunities for the staff, my staff at 211, to train with police to understand from their perspective what they're encountering in the field, and for our 211 operators, including our crisis services staff, to also cross-train with police. And what we thought is if we can perhaps pilot more closer cooperation in Stonington, that would give us a good template. So interesting enough, about a week after that discussion that we had with Chief Stewart, there has been introduced in Washington, D.C. in Congress by a senator from Pennsylvania, a bill that actually aims at this precise issue and would provide additional funding for 2-on-1s across the country, in addition to some other measures that would be taken, again, at a national level to encourage exactly this redirection of certain non-emergency calls from 911 systems to 211 systems. So we, in fact, are tapping into that bigger energy. Obviously, that will take a while to play out, but if those resources did come available, that would be very helpful. Part of the reason we wanted to start at a Stonington level to think about how we do this is, again, so that we do not overwhelm the existing capacity that we have at 211. And that is what the bill, called the HOPE bill, by the way, introduced just this week. And the HELP Act, rather, which stands for the Human Services Emergency Logistics Program. And the intent of that bill is to make sure that 211 systems can be resourced appropriately so that this redirection works as we'd all want it to. But in any event, what we agreed with Chief Stewart is that we're going to look for no-cost ways that, again, starting in Stonington, 211 can work together with the Stonington Police Department to enhance our coordination on services. And then we'll think together about what we would do if we had some additional funding, which, if the HELP Act goes through, might in fact become the case. So that's where we are. Thank you, Darren. Anything to add?
Yeah, we talked about a thing called PARS. It's probably because I was watching the Golf Channel at the time, which is P was for paradigm shift, which means when you talk about a paradigm shift on police cars for decades, you had dial 911. Every DARE class, you learn about 911. It's been ingrained in our culture that if there's a problem, you call 911. But not every call needs 911 where you need a police officer. So how do you paradigm shift that away from the police into a service like 211? So we discussed that as far as that goes, and that certainly isn't a light switch flip, and it's going to happen. Then it's accessibility. That's the A part of it. What kind of access is out there to certain services so that people know what's out there and what they can expect. Then R is the response time. How long is it going to take if it's not a 911 call or a police response? How long is it going to take for some service to get to a person, and what is the expectation of that? Because if it goes too long, it will develop into a 911 call. Then probably the S end of it is probably the most important part of it, is that safety. So safety of not only the person making the call either to 911, 211, but also to the people that do respond to that particular location, whether it be the police or the 211 folks or some other agency, that they're going into a situation that they're safe. So there's a lot of things in there, a lot of things to be worked out on how this could work. It's probably easier to go from 211 to 911 because the 211 will screen the caller, and if there's certain flags that come up, yeah, it's going to go right to the police. It may not be as easy to go from the police to 211 and ensure safety. So there's a lot of discussion, but we called it crawling. We're starting to crawl, which that usually leads to walking and then eventually running. So it's actually some good stuff there, and good conversation on where things could head, potentially go. I know the Connecticut Mirror, I don't know, did he put the article out yet? He was doing a conversation on about this topic, especially because of Pennsylvania going down that road. So it's an interesting paradigm shift that we hadn't looked at for many years, or even the social work end of it, and where this is eventually going to go in police departments. But we talked about, at the end of the day, it equals what is the best services for somebody in need. And that can be a variety of different things. It doesn't necessarily mean the police, and it doesn't necessarily mean, a mental health worker. What does the person in need actually, what would best suit them under the circumstances? And that's a collaborative approach to talk about what needs to be done.
I have a question, and I know it sounds like certainly an interesting concept here to investigate and consider. But just, and I know we're in the crawling stage, but just where is the switch point? Meaning, if someone calls into dispatch now with a 911 call, does the dispatcher determine the need for the police to respond? And if in their judgment that's not the case, then they refer it over to a 211 individual, or does it go both ways? Someone calls 211 and a dispatcher there makes the determination it belongs to the police. But I'm wondering where the switch point is, where the determination is made as to which direction we go.
That's what we're talked about earlier. It's much easier for 211 to say somebody on Lisa's end starts to ask some questions. Like, are you armed? Are you suicidal? And if the answer is yes to certain questions, they're going to be like, huh, we're calling the police. That's an easy one. When you call 911, that 99.9% of the time equals a police officer response.
Sure.
Because you just called and said, I have an emergency. 911, where's your emergency? They give you where they're at, comes up on a screen, what's going on? And they could say, I'm having a problem with one of my kids or whatever it is. Okay. Is there any weapons? No. Everything good? They go through a series of questions and then say, okay, an officer will be out. And so the paradigm shift is that the person that called 911 may not, at the end of the day, really need a police officer under certain circumstances, but they have called the police and hence they get a police response. So how do you work that out to have it go the other way and then have the S at the end of PARS, the safety end of it, to ensure that if somebody's going to come out and do that. So I believe it's much easier, and I don't know, Lisa can chime in, that when they do their intake, if you want to call it, if there's certain flags that go off, that usually means a call right away to the police. And we get calls all the time from 211, say, hey, we have somebody that's suicidal at this location.
Okay.
And we go out. But it has not been part of our philosophy when 911 rings, that also we don't have a special button that we hit 211. You know, in probably some cases, hey, why don't you call 211? But hey, you called 911, we'll send somebody by to make sure everything's okay. You know, this has to be worked out, because that's.
No, I understand. No, and I, my question was not to get a definitive answer, because I know where this is kind of at the exploratory stage, and I well appreciate that. I'm just, thinking it through, and I guess as we work through this process, and not just us on our own, but you want to be able to get the appropriate response as quickly as you can. One, because that's what you need to do, and two, it reduces the liability for the town on the town's part as well. So that's just kind of a general question. Not looking for a definitive answer this evening. I think it's certainly a worthwhile approach to investigate, because if we can reduce some of the calls that the police go out on now that maybe are not necessary, that would certainly be beneficial to us as well.
Like there's a larger philosophical discussion on crisis and what that means. Crisis at the moment and crisis that is long term, and certainly the police are more short term crisis intervention agencies, where 911 is called, we go, we deal with the issue at that hand, and hopefully that's moved on to something else, whether they're getting help, whether an arrest is made or not. Whereas the other end of it is more longer term, with social workers and getting people longer term help to solve an issue. The police are this short term intervention, is violation of laws, everything good, safety, all that stuff. And now it's a mixture of this, and that's what has to be worked out. And it was a very good, robust conversation on, how this can work. And at the end, it's about getting the best help for people in need.
Yep, makes sense. Yep.
You know what the definition of an emergency is, don't you, Chief?
Oh boy, here we go. Give it to me.
No, when the person who says it's an emergency thinks it's an emergency.
Yeah.
So on that note, in fact, Bob, that's a good segue to the last point that at least I would like to make, which is, since it is going to be very complicated to work out when there's a 911 call that could go to 211. I would not presume to have any answer to that at this juncture.
Sure.
But what we do have are resources that could potentially be helpful to police in shortening the time that they are spending at a call. So if the police go to a call, realize that there is one of our crisis intervention services for someone who is experiencing a mental health issue, for example, that they could draw on. That would give, for example, the Stonington Police the opportunity to engage our services over the phone and feel confident that they could then leave that call in good hands with the appropriate services engaged. So that's an example of where we could go now. The bigger question, I think, is probably also going to be determined in part by this help legislation at the national level, which aims to try and sort some of this in law. So I think there's years before we're going to be able to cross that bridge with confidence. But in the meantime, there are these other intersections where we can put our resources together and hopefully provide the right service and conserve the police resources for what is really law enforcement.
You know, it provides a lateral for the officer maybe to to pass along the incident to someone else who has a different skill set. It makes perfect sense. I mean, in years past, before we closed up all the mental health installations or institutions we had in the state, sometimes when the police picked up someone that they clearly knew or could tell needed some a mental health assistance, they would drive them to the Norwich State Hospital and ensure that person got the appropriate help by way of just transporting that individual. But now those institutions were closed, and as a result, the police departments were the last resort for all those instances, and that's how society kind of developed. So this is kind of heading back into a direction where we were historically, and I think it potentially could be beneficial. So it makes perfect sense.
I think you're right, Bob. Lisa, I just had a question. You get a 211 call now, and what is the response? Is it a referral response or response? Or what happens now if the person needs mental services, has a mental breakdown? How do you handle that now? Is it a referral, or does somebody actually go out at the present time? So I don't know if we have the resources now to do that.
So the short answer, Chair, is that it depends. We are contracted through the state of Connecticut as the entry point for mobile crisis mental health services across the state. So in the event we get a caller where it becomes clear to us that what's needed is going to be fairly urgent in-person mental health assistance, we work with the, again, as sort of the front door to those services. But obviously you try and conserve those resources as well. So, we have teams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, who are trained to try and help people through a crisis. And if it's appropriate, then just to refer them in the right way. If it's more immediate, or if, as Darren pointed out, if you've got someone who has, an intent to do self-harm or to harm someone else, and there are weapons in the house, then that specialist is going to call the police and stay on the line until the police arrive.
Right.
So it really depends, and I'd be glad to talk more about it. I know our time is short, but we have various levels on which we'd respond.
Right.
That's already in place, Bob, from 211, because when they do their intake or screening, if there's certain things that come up in that screening, that results in an immediate over to the police department. That happens I bet it happens on a daily basis for you, Lisa.
Yeah, hundreds of times a year, I'm sorry to say, but our folks are very well trained and they know the drill. So they do a good job with the discussion. So
that's the good part of it. The bad part of it, and I don't mean bad part of it, is that from 911 back to 211, that's a new road that hasn't really existed. And how do you make that happen? How do you, what's sort of your rules of making that work that way? And Lisa was right about possibly just the officers that even at the scene making that call or referring. We do that right now on domestic violence calls, where we have to do safety plans or work with Safe Futures. And I could even envision, I'm sort of brainstorming here, at least on a temporary basis, and that is something very similar, a model that we're already aware of and works fairly well.
Mhm.
Good stuff for on bad things going in the world, but appreciate it. Lisa's and was it Tanya? Yeah,
Tanya Barrett.
Yeah, her time. Very, very nice. So I appreciate that.
The last thing I'd say on that is, Darren, and to your point, Bob, ideally you don't have to reroute a call at the 911.2 211. ideally, we help to create a new understanding of when you should call 211 as your first call. That's really, I would say, the biggest piece of the goal. But in any event, you'll hear more from us as we sort it out.
Okay, thank you.
That's the paradigm shift. That's the toughest
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Chief, next up for you.
Let's see, police vehicles, electric police vehicles. You heard from Richard earlier about how the radios are getting bigger. How are they going to fit under the seat of a Tesla? Not sure it's going to work. So we went down this road a number of years ago. There was a company, I believe, out of Arizona that created a police vehicle that was supposed to be the new wave of how you police. It had even had nuclear detectors in it, license plate readers, integrated light bars, and replaceable parts that could take a fender off of it, put a new one on. It never gained much traction because the price tag on it was pretty hefty. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they also guaranteed, 300,000 miles. I'm not sure how some of the vehicles that, from an electric point of view, are going to stand up under the policing end of it. And I mean, if you ever go for a ride in a police car and you have to go on some of these emergencies, and sometimes you're out in the woods or over curbs or whatever it happens to be, we get that 100,000 mile mark, as we've talked about, and those cars are pretty much shot. They're done. And we're going to have to wait and see. I try not to be the test case on this, on the vehicles. So from an electric point of view, you also have a limited amount of miles before you have to recharge. And that is, many of our cars for the first year run 24/7. And we don't take them off the road for 8 hours to recharge. And also there's going to be a question on electric vehicles when it comes to road construction jobs or long-term scenes where you just have your flashing lights going for hours at a time. What's that going to do to the battery life that's there? So I think we're going to have to wait and see. I know it's coming. I know there's going to be hybrids, be a variety of different things. But at this point, I mean, the prices are going to have to come down too to make it affordable for municipalities, because it's pretty expensive, most of the electric cars. So.
Chief, you answered this a year or so ago. How many average miles do these cars put on in a year?
42,000 to 48,000. Those are the black and white vehicles that are on the front line.
Right.
So what they do is they basically go right into service. They basically don't stop for almost a year until the new cars come in. When the new ones come in, they replace them. Those particular vehicles go in what is really a second wave of second tier of vehicles, and they may be used on a regular basis every day, but they're not doing the 24/7 that some of the newer vehicles get. So, yeah. So the average mileage, if you went out and just grabbed the car, you're in the parking lot, average mileage would be about 67,000, 65,000 miles.
Good.
So, but those are hard miles. I'm telling you, they are very, very hard miles. So that's the electric vehicle training. We had the training 2 weeks ago on bias training, which I thought was pretty decent. It was expensive. I got a price to see what it would be for the whole department. So it's about $50 a person. So we're going to have a discussion on that down. In your packet is a human trafficking report. It's more of an FYI. Under M, you have Officer Chris Murray leaving the department. He decided to move on to another position. So with that, I did accept his resignation. But usually the police commission votes on that to accept his departure. So I'd recommend that you vote on that and make it part of the record.
I have a motion to accept Chris Murray's resignation.
So move.
Second. In favor? All in favor? Raise your hand. Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. We wish Chris the best of luck with elected and good health.
I just want to make a comment that, and you seem to have glossed over this, Chief, that we've extended No Shave November into January. I can see because it's not November anymore, and you still have your beard. So
I know. It's just try to keep a few positive things if everybody wants it. We had Officer Carrie Browning actually handed out early Christmas gifts to all the guys. She got beard oil for us all. So we're doing the best we can. I don't know. Some people looking at me, are you undercover again? I'm like, no, those days are done. So, going back to letter H, the department budget request, vote needed. So if you're able to take this one right here, I could probably go line by line. Is going to be the easiest way that we can go through it. And if anybody has any questions, just a quick overview. Certain things you'll see to be determined. That has to do with our finance director will make the final calculations on what the dollar amounts are. From a personnel point of view, we have union and non-union personnel. The union personnel are already under contract that we really don't have a say in and what the percentages are as far as their salaries go. They have right now our lieutenants, sergeants, and officers have 2.6% cost of living increases across the board. And we usually try and do the same for all non-union personnel. And that's probably the biggest thing as far as the first 20 or so line items in there. So you have myself, the captain, dispatchers, animal control, our janitorial services, our reserve officers, crossing guards, I think I said animal controls, clerical, that I would recommend that the police commission also endorse the 2.6% cost of living increase as what the union members get.
do I have a motion to make the raise the 2.6% cost of living for non-union members of the department? You want to make that motion?
So move.
Seconded?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Chief, continue on, please.
If you continue down under item number 19, 19 is a police technology specialist, or actually it's called the police support supervisor. That was the latest job title. That is basically, as I think we've discussed in previous years, with the implementation of body cameras very shortly about to occur, and the added demands of not only dispatch and a variety of different things within the police department, it's gotten to the point of crying uncle. Now, I'll sort of weave in another part of the budget in here, is that I've had a request from our supervisory staff during one of our staff meetings, and we tend to agree, is that to raise the number of sergeants from 6 sergeants that we have right now, we have 5 patrol and 1 detective sergeant, to go up to 7 sergeants, which I think is important because of the amount of responsibilities that continue to come our way as far as supervision goes. And I think with the department having grown over the past couple of years, we used to be around 35 officers and going up to 39 officers that we're budgeted for. The need by not only the public, but from a liability point of view of having supervisors available to respond to calls is more and more important in today's day and age. And we have done a good job. The supervisors come to work but they're also crying uncle at this point in time when it comes to the amount of responsibilities that keep being piled on them, and also some of the shift work that they have to do, specifically the sergeants. In particular, it's called relief. If you're on midnight shift, you'd work 4 on, 2 off. So on 2 nights, you would have a relief supervisor, a relief sergeant work those 2 nights, and then he or she would come back the next day and work day shift, and then on the next day they'd work evening shift. So, and then they would have 1.5 days off, come back for midnights, work 2 midnights, come back the next day for days, and then work evening shift. And, you know, from your sleep cycles and everything else, every time we go through this, the supervisors are crying uncle that, hey, you know, can't we do something different? Can't we have, you know, 2 supervisors on each shift, 2 on days, 2 on evenings, 2 on midnights, so that we have overlap, and that, you know, you got that one shift that you work on, and it seems to make happier, more productive, and not as tired and burned out supervisors. Then I have also a list of responsibilities that supervisors have that I probably should have given to everybody earlier. But it's a full page of different things, from OSHA to now body cameras to fleet management, to wreckers, a variety of different things, animal control oversight, canine division oversight, detective division, LINKS, which is a program with the federal government on certain things, warrants, records, FOI requests. I can keep going and going. That 20 years ago, we didn't have half of these, and that they continue to be piled onto police departments. So you have sergeants that are sitting in their office, which is fine, but they're not being sergeants. They're being professional paper pushers on some of these items that need to be taken care of by now. So I think with everything that's going on in the world and everything that's happening, that we go from 6 sergeants to 7 sergeants would mean about a $9,000 increase to the budget. And then we would lower from 29 patrol officers to 28. And we've talked with everybody internally here, and from a union point of view and from a sort of an internal supervisory morale point of view, it certainly makes sense that we start to look at the, you know, the workload that people have, and how we're going to deal with accreditation, which is going to be an extremely heavy lift for this department that does not have an accreditation unit. I know we're taking on Attorney Daigle. You know, that's a big part of it, but it's not they're not going to do the day-to-day stuff. And we're going to continue to have stuff piled on us that would not be funded, but we have to do them anyways. I mean, I have to do a report this week into next week. I talked with Lisa about it, on the feasibility of social workers within police departments. That is not a easy thing. I've been asked to do it and to hand it out to other police departments around the state, because they don't know what are we going to say? Well, you know, what's going to be the solution here? You know, you talk about parking, you talk about, you know, we even have to have a supervisor oversee the parking tickets. You know, who's out there? The community service officers, they get trained. You know, these little things that say, okay, that's not too bad. We only have 4 community service officers. Yeah, you got to schedule them. You got to ensure that they're trained properly. You got to teach them about the radios. You got to go out and check on them. You have to, you know, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then the parking tickets they issue. You know, how did they, you know, you collect the money, you get them to the town hall. There's so many different things that have come our way that we're at the point of saying uncle. So that's one of our things right now that we'll definitely look at and move forward. It's progress.
Chief, I think that you know, supervisors aren't supervising anymore. They're producing paper and doing auxiliary duties that really take them away from their primary duties to see what's going on with our guys out on the road. I mean, the amount of paperwork that has increased is astronomical. You know, even for patrol officers, I hate to go into my past, but I can remember that when you did an accident investigation, it was 1 page. Now it's 8 pages, if it's that. So, I mean, the time frame to do this paperwork, not only from the patrolman office, but the supervisors, we need that extra supervisor to spread out these duties so they can get out and see how the guys are performing in the field, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Right. And that's where we're having, certain things that you got to put off. I mean, it's going to still be there tomorrow, but we're having lieutenants now, and you have Lieutenant Schneider that comes before you quite often on a variety of different topics like the fleet and even the body cam stuff. You'll see him more often on that. And Lieutenant Peckham with just the training responsibilities that we have now and requirements that we have to do. And if a sergeant takes off or is out ill or something, then that creates a lieutenant that takes over that shift, and they're doing everything that the sergeant was doing, and their duties just falls by the wayside until the next time. Nobody's going to come in and do the work of the lieutenants. They have to pick it up where it left off. So it's gotten to the point of even our lieutenants, we're trying not to have them have to carry a shift on top of their regular duties, because it's just gotten it's too much. There's just too much stuff in the world. You've heard about even like the boat stuff. Lieutenant Schneider runs the boat, and how you coordinate everything with that and the electronics and everything with that. You can't be going out to back somebody up on a domestic and handling, backing people up on a 3-car accident, go into a disturbance and bouncing all over there on a shift and expect that you're going to get this stuff done. It just isn't happening. And we're crying uncle when it comes to where we stand on this.
What do you need from us? Do we need a vote at this juncture, or do we vote on this as part of the whole budget? Because it seems, at least to me, that you've made a very good case, and it's a really wise way to think about shifting the staffing, and has, frankly, a very modest fiscal impact. So what do we need to do? Maybe the chair can answer that.
Well, I think we're going to vote on the entire budget.
Yeah.
When we're finished, that's what we'll do, and that's in the budget now. So when we vote on the budget, it will be included.
Right, and I hope that you got the job description of the police support supervisor. That's very similar to Groton Town, and I appreciate Chief Fazaro sending me sort of his template on that to. It's a draft. It's a starting point for us, so this obviously can change or probably should change, but it's a starting point along that line. We have grown as a department in the last few years, and we're going to have to continue to grow as population comes in, whether it be Harbor Heights or Spruce Meadows or a variety of different things that come into play. Our reserve force is down. So we only have two reserve officers at this point in time, and plus once COVID's done, I think we're going to have a newfound special event push that we haven't seen ever again, because I think everybody's going to party like it's 1999, and it's going to be an interesting time, and it could be this summer, and now we're down 3 officers. And the recruitment end of it is a challenge at this particular time. So, and we're starting a new process tomorrow, and we'll certainly take it from there. But
Chief, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Your explanation about the additional sergeant makes perfect sense to me. I think clearly that would balance things out a little bit. But I do have a question. On a new position, and maybe it's just a matter of nomenclature. On the descriptive thing under departmental staffing, where the position itself is called police support supervisor, and in one of the lines it says 1 civilian records / dispatch supervisor. So my question is this new hire going to be the supervisor for the existing dispatch staff?
Yes.
Okay, so that's why the supervisor title is attached to it, okay? Because I was initially, I didn't quite understand that until I guess if I had read things, maybe I would have understood it. Because I didn't quite understand who this new hire is going to be supervising.
My vision is that they supervise not only the records personnel, but also the probably one of the bigger parts, not only because of the body cam footage and having to redact a lot of the videos, et cetera, would be also dispatch. When you talk about dispatch, we're talking about the scheduling of dispatchers on when they're going to be there, and also to assist with the technology that continues to come into that center. Not only with our radio system, you got a little lesson in geek with Richard, but it's equally as difficult in that dispatch center, whether it becomes the recording devices that are there, how we transfer calls, 911 calls to different agencies, and just the technology that's in there with our IT department to make all this work and also have a vision for the future. Law enforcement is notorious for being 4 to 5 years behind technology with the other world or what the business world is out there because of the amount of time we spend just chasing our tails on calls and going on the things that we're talking about. So from a practical point of view, it would be extremely beneficial to have somebody that can be in there, that they can go to on a daily or regular basis, instead of a supervisor that may be doing so many other things that we talked about, and also be part of development, again, on the accreditation end. There's going to be a big part of that in dispatch center on how you implement that with the dispatchers that are there.
Well, currently the dispatchers, who do they report to? A sergeant?
No, they report to Lieutenant Schneider.
To Lieutenant Schneider. Okay, so that would go away, and I'm assuming here, that you mentioned that you had spoken with the uniform officers before about the potentiality of an additional sergeant. Does the existing dispatch folks know about the potentiality of having a different supervisor?
Not at this point, because we still have a little bit of a mountain to climb through, not only tonight, which is, I don't think that's as big a mountain, but we're going to have the Board of Finance to go through with that. And then there'd be a hiring process. And then at that particular time, we would start to unveil where this actually is going to go, if it looks like we're going to get support and backing for it from the Board of Finance to actually make this happen.
Okay, no, I'm not questioning at all, your rationale for doing this from a managerial perspective. But it's not that. I just wanted to get it clarified in my head as to what was what you were doing. That's all.
I expanded the duties because Groton Town did this, and it's worked out extremely well for Groton. So Groton is about 1/3 to 2/5 larger than we are as far as personnel goes, number of calls, etc. So their person that they wrote that job description for, they do that full time over there. That's records, just records, not dispatch.
Yep.
So I figured that if we're going to take somebody on, that we can probably kill two birds with one stone here, and take that and run with it and have it be a position that can supervise that downstairs area in an efficient way. I mentioned Lieutenant Schneider. He's in charge of the boat. He's in charge of dispatch center. Detectives, he has oversight over detectives. So even if we did hire this person, we would still have oversight by the administration, but it wouldn't be the day-to-day, scheduling of people, filling overtime shifts, covering this, working with the state on a particular new technology that they're bringing in, as well as policies and procedures that seem to come down every couple of weeks on a new procedure, a new way of doing things. So, I mean, we even met this week with, I know the lieutenant and captain met with Westerly, Rhode Island PD on on some procedural issues in dispatch and how we go back and forth with each other. So, as you can see, I just mentioned Lieutenant Schneider, but Lieutenant Peckham has just an equally full plate with the FOI requests and training, ensuring people are getting their certifications, and they're chasing their tails. They really are.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm not, being argumentative at all. I just wanted to make sure, and I understood what your plan is, and it makes perfect sense to me.
And that's a draft too, that job description. So if I missed a spelling mistake or something doesn't make sense, it was in my haste to make sure you had something. So by all means, get the red pen out. I'm not afraid of that.
Thank you.
And then sort of going down with the rest of the budget, if you take lines 25 through 33, there are no changes in there. We start to continue to get on lines 34 through 42. I put an extra $1,000 in maintenance of radios because our service contract with Motorola did go up 3% into the next fiscal year. So it's more than $1,000, but I figured just to keep it as close as we could because of some of the other increases that we have. Continuing down, the retirement fund, that's to be determined by the Director of Finance. And then line 50 is under physicals. We usually have $6,000 in that account, but I put it up to $18,000 because we are required to, by Public Act 20-01, to do recommended 20% of our police department do mental health evaluation through a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist with a PTSD background. And Commissioner Bates, they must be licensed in the state of Connecticut, and telehealth is probably going to be discussed, but it is not an answer that we have right now, so it's probably in person. So
that's interesting, Darren. I don't want to belabor this, but I'd love to have a further conversation with you offline because that's counter to the executive orders that are still in force with regard to telehealth options. And so there might be something that can be done about that. And I'd love to have a further conversation, but again, that we can do that offline.
Right. That was a discussion I had with the police academy because I tried to say, hey, the amount of personnel that is around the state, I was doing it from more of a state perspective as well. Can we go to Boston? Can we go to Providence? There are different areas of the country where there are experts in that area, and the answer to begin with was no at this particular time. It had to be licensed in Connecticut, and the telehealth thing was not something they had considered. So
yeah, the problem with that for those of you also here is that Connecticut is woefully under-resourced with regard to psychiatric and psychology experts on a good day. And then you require this level of specialization, and it simply, I think Chief Stewart's pointed this out, it's not going to be workable. So Chief Stewart, I'd love to have a conversation with you about, whether there's a path. It might even take some kind of legislation. I don't know what's possible in the administration. I'd be glad to talk that through with you and see if we can push the envelope on that.
Okay, thank you. Also part of that is under physicals is the drug testing. We have to do testing 1/3 of the department approximately every year for drugs and steroids. The latest I had was $225 an officer to have that done. That's also required under the new bill. So that you see, we went from 6,000 to 18,000. I don't know what to expect. I have a rough idea, but I mean, to begin with, we may be overfunded in that line or woefully underfunded. It all depends on how things go. So we're in uncharted territory with that. But I figured that would be a reasonable starting point from a fiscal point of view, at least. Sort of moving along, no real changes through line 61. When we go to probably the biggest decrease would be on line 68. which would be unleaded gasoline. That because we were able to lock in the price at $1.62 a gallon, times approximately 34,000 gallons, we could lower the price by $60,000. I mean, by $15,000. So believe it or not, we do play the futures, gasoline futures, and we try and lock in prices. The only other line item that I think I skipped over, and there was a new one, was line 32, which was the accreditation expenses. And I appreciate last month we agreed with to get Attorney Daigle on board. Finance also was on board, and they'll do a line item transfer later on in the year to get that rolling. But I think as we move forward, we have to have a line item as this expense continues is going to be out there. So again, it's uncharted territory, but I think 15,000 is appropriate to start at this particular time with that. Yeah, I'll certainly entertain any questions, concerns, thoughts. Again, we ask for things we need and hopefully get them. And we're not trying to pad anything or do anything here. We've tried to put responsible budgets forward. Our biggest part of the budget is personnel, and you're going to see probably a bigger chunk because of personnel, because of the sergeant plus the supervisor and records and dispatch.
Any comments from the commissioners?
So, Tabor, was that a yes, or are you trying to hit me?
No. I think there's like a moth flying around here.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
I was
What you're trying to say?
I was preoccupied.
Can I make a motion, Chair, to approve the current draft of the budget presented by the chief?
Yes.
Second.
Oh, and to send it on to the Board of Finance.
Once the numbers are filled in, yep.
Yep.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
With the budget, I will have a meeting with the first select woman sometime in January. I think she already sent a meeting notice. Off the top of my head, I thought it was January 11th. I believe Commissioner Tabor usually come with us to try to.
Right.
So certainly as we get closer, whether it's going to be a Zoom meeting or in person, we'll certainly let you know on what goes on with that and
Be good.
go from there.
Thank you.
With that, I think that is all I have. I know I say every month, I feel like I've forgotten something, and I usually do, but that's it for this month. I wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and hopefully 2021 is better than 2020, that's for sure. And good health and stay safe.
I have a motion to accept the report of the chief.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Raise your hand. Before we get to the consent agenda, I just have one report. We had one use of force report since our last meeting. It happened on November 28th of this year, and it had to do with a subject that refused to stop his vehicle, and eventually he was running out of gas during a traffic stop. They found him, and he refused to shows his hand. So the officer did draw his weapon, but he finally complied and he rehosted his weapon. There's nothing wrong with the use of force in this case. So just wanted the other commissioners to know that. And now we have a consent agenda. On the consent agenda, they have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which are 2 thank yous.
So moved.
So moved.
Well, that's good. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Everybody
have a great holiday.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Merry
See
Christmas,
y'all later.
everybody.
Merry
Happy
Christmas,
New
everybody.
Year.
Bye.
And Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.